Quick question. When was the last time you went more than one round? If you had to think about it for more than 3 seconds, this video was made specifically for you. Because what I'm about to share with you today is going to completely change the way you think about your performance after 60. Most men in your position are either worried that something is wrong with them, or they've quietly accepted that those days are behind them. And I'm here to tell you both of those responses are wrong. The truth about how many rounds a man over 60 should really be going is not what you've been told. It's not what Google says, and it's definitely not what most people your age are talking about. But by the time this video is done, you're going to have the real answer, the full picture, and a clear path forward. So do not click away. What's coming next could change everything. Now, before we get into it, if this is your first time on this channel, welcome. My name is Dr. Julia Rodas. I am a certified men's sex therapist with over a decade of experience working with men and couples from all walks of life. Over the years, I have sat across from hundreds of men in their 60s, their 70s, even their 80s, who walked into my office feeling embarrassed, confused, and convinced that their best days were behind them. And in almost every single case, they were wrong. My work is dedicated to helping men reclaim their sexual health, their confidence, and their strength, no matter their age. And that is exactly what this channel is about. Real answers, honest conversations, no embarrassment, no judgment, and absolutely no sugarcoating. So, if nobody has ever sat you down and given you the straight truth about this topic, consider today that day. But before we go any further, if you are watching this and you are a man over 60 or you love someone who is, please do us both a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Because every single week, I am putting out content specifically designed for men like you. Content that your doctor doesn't have time to share, that the internet gets completely wrong, and that most people are simply too uncomfortable to talk about. This channel exists so you don't have to figure this out alone. Subscribe now and let's get into it. Here is the reality that nobody wants to talk about. Millions of men over 60 are walking around right now carrying a quiet weight. Not a physical weight, an emotional one. The weight of comparison, the weight of memory, the weight of looking back at who they were at 30 or 40 and wondering what happened to that man. Maybe you remember a time when going multiple rounds in a single night felt effortless. When your body responded the way you wanted it to, when you wanted it to, without question, without hesitation. And now things feel different. The frequency has changed. The recovery takes longer. And somewhere along the way, nobody told you whether that was normal or whether it was a warning sign. So what do most men do? They do what men have been conditioned to do for generations. They stay quiet. They don't ask their doctor because they're embarrassed. They don't talk to their partner because they don't want to seem weak. They maybe do a quick Google search at midnight and come away more confused and more anxious than before. And slowly, the silence becomes a story that says their best days are over. And that story is one of the most destructive things a man can carry. Here's what makes this even more frustrating. The information that exists out there on this topic is either too clinical, too vague, or completely disconnected from the real lived experience of men over 60. Articles written by people who have never sat across from a 64-year-old man and watched the relief wash over his face when he finally understood what was happening in his body. Forums full of fear and misinformation. Advice built for younger men and recycled as if age doesn't matter. It matters. Age absolutely matters, and pretending otherwise is not helping anyone. The problem is not that men over 60 have questions about this. The problem is that the right answers have never been delivered to them in a direct, honest, shame-free way until now. What actually changes after 60? Let's talk about what is actually happening inside the body after 60, because understanding this is the foundation of everything else we're going to cover today. First, testosterone. This is the hormone that drives sexual desire, performance, and recovery. And here's what the science confirms. Testosterone levels in men begin declining at roughly 1% per year after the age of 30. By the time a man reaches his 60s, his testosterone levels can be anywhere from 20 to 50% lower than they were in his prime. This is not a character flaw. This is not a failure. This is biology. And what does lower testosterone actually mean in practice? It means that your drive may not fire as urgently as it once did. It means that your body needs more time between rounds. It means that arousal can take longer to build and that the recovery window after intimacy is longer than it used to be. Now here's the term I want you to understand, the refractory period. The refractory period is the recovery time your body requires between sexual encounters before it can perform again. And this is where the biggest gap between expectation and reality lives for most men over 60. In your 20s, the refractory period could be as short as a few minutes. Genuinely, a young man's body bounces back remarkably fast. By the 40s, that recovery window typically stretches to a few hours. And by the time a man reaches his 60s, the refractory period can range from 12 hours to 48 hours depending on overall health, testosterone levels, cardiovascular fitness, stress, and sleep quality. Let that sink in. 12 to 48 hours. That is not dysfunction. That is your body's natural biological rhythm at this stage of life. But nobody tells men this. Nobody sits them down and says, hey, the rules have changed and that's okay. Here's what the new rules look like. And then there's another factor that almost never gets discussed, the role of cardiovascular health. Sexual performance is at its core a cardiovascular event. Blood flow, circulation, heart rate, all of it plays a direct role in how your body performs and recovers. As cardiovascular fitness declines with age, and for most men it does unless actively maintained, performance and recovery are directly affected. The same goes for sleep. Testosterone is primarily produced during deep sleep. A man who is sleeping 5 hours a night is essentially cutting off his body's natural testosterone production at the source. Poor sleep, poor performance. It really is that connected. None of this is meant to discourage you. Quite the opposite, because understanding what is actually happening gives you the power to work with your body, not against it. The real answer. How many rounds is actually normal? All right, this is the section you came for. Let's give you the real answer. How many rounds should a man over 60 actually be going? The honest, science-backed answer is 1 to 2 times per week is the healthy, normal, sustainable range for most men in their 60s. Some men naturally fall below that once every 1 to 2 weeks, and that is also within a healthy range depending on individual health factors. And there are men in their 60s who are having sex more frequently than that, and they are perfectly healthy too. But here's what the research makes clear. The average sexually active man over 60 engages in sexual activity roughly 2 to 4 times per month, not per week, per month. And studies have found that over 50% of sexually active older adults report having sex between 3 to 5 times monthly. A significant number report even more. So if you have been measuring yourself against the version of you from 30 years ago, stop. That comparison is not just unfair, it is medically irrelevant. Now let's talk about the myth of multiple rounds in a single session after 60. For the vast majority of men over 60, going multiple rounds in the same night is no longer the biological norm. And chasing that as a standard is one of the fastest ways to create anxiety, frustration, and performance pressure that makes everything worse. One strong, connected, satisfying round is not a consolation prize. It is the physiologically appropriate expectation for this stage of life. But here is the part nobody tells you, and this is important. Quality has a direct and proven relationship to satisfaction. Studies on sexual satisfaction in older adults consistently show that men and women over 60 report higher levels of emotional satisfaction, deeper intimacy, and more meaningful sexual experiences than younger age groups, not because of frequency, because of presence, because of experience, because of connection. Men over 60 who have done the work emotionally, relationally, and physically often describe their sexual experiences as the best of their lives. Not the most frequent, the best. Let's also bust a few myths while we're here. Myth number 1, if you can only go once, something is wrong with you. False. Once per encounter with a recovery period of 12 to 48 hours is completely normal and healthy for men over 60. Myth number 2, if your frequency has dropped, your relationship is failing. Also false. Frequency naturally decreases with age for both men and women. What matters far more is whether both partners feel connected, desired, and fulfilled. That conversation is more important than any number. Myth number 3, there's nothing you can do about it. This is perhaps the most damaging myth of all, and it is completely categorically false. There is a significant amount you can do, and we're going to get into exactly that. What affects your number? So now that you know what normal looks like, let's talk about what actually determines where you fall within that range, because your number is not fixed. It is influenced by a set of factors that are largely within your control. Factor 1. Overall physical health. Men who maintain a healthy weight, exercise regularly, and manage chronic conditions like diabetes, hypertension, or heart disease consistently report better sexual function and higher frequency than men who don't. This is not a coincidence. Your physical health is directly and immediately connected to your sexual health. Factor 2. Testosterone levels. As we covered, testosterone drives desire and performance. If your levels are clinically low, this is something worth discussing with your doctor. There are both medical and natural approaches to supporting healthy testosterone levels, and knowing your numbers is the first step. Factor 3. Stress and mental health. This one is massively underestimated. Chronic stress triggers the release of cortisol, a hormone that directly suppresses testosterone production. A man who is under constant financial, emotional, or professional stress is fighting an uphill battle in the bedroom. Managing stress is not a luxury for sexual health after 60, it is a necessity. Factor 4. The quality of your relationship. Men in emotionally connected, communicative relationships consistently report better sexual function than men in disconnected or conflict-heavy relationships. Emotional intimacy creates physical intimacy. If the emotional connection in your relationship has faded, that will show up in the bedroom. This is one of the most common things I work on with couples and one of the most transformative. Factor 5. Sleep quality. We touched on this already, but it deserves its own place on this list because it is that important. Deep, consistent quality sleep is when your body produces testosterone, repairs tissue, and regulates the hormones that drive desire. If you are not prioritizing sleep, you are leaving your sexual health on the table every single night. Factor 6. Diet and nutrition. Certain nutritional deficiencies, particularly zinc, vitamin D, and magnesium, are directly linked to low testosterone and poor sexual function. A diet high in processed foods, sugar, and alcohol is one of the most common and most overlooked contributors to sexual decline in men over 60. Your body performs with what you feed it. All 6 of these factors interact with each other. A man who is sleeping well, eating right, managing stress, and investing in his relationship is going to have a very different experience than a man who is not, regardless of age. Warning signs to watch for. Now, while everything we've discussed so far falls within the range of normal age-related change, there are situations where a drop in sexual frequency or performance is a signal that something more serious needs attention. Here are the warning signs I want you to take seriously. A sudden and significant drop in desire. If you went from being regularly active to having virtually no interest in sex in a short period of time, that is worth investigating. Sudden hormonal shifts, thyroid issues, depression, and certain medications can all cause rapid changes in libido. Consistent erectile dysfunction. Occasional difficulty is normal and can be caused by stress, fatigue, alcohol, or anxiety, but consistent, persistent erectile dysfunction is often one of the first signs of cardiovascular disease. The blood vessels that serve the male anatomy are some of the smallest in the body, and they are often the first to show the effects of arterial damage. If this is happening regularly, please see a doctor, not because of your sex life, but because of your heart. Pain during or after intimacy. This should never be ignored. Pain can signal prostate issues, nerve problems, or circulatory concerns that require medical evaluation. Significant mood changes alongside reduced desire. Depression and low testosterone often appear together, and they create a cycle that is difficult to break without support. If you are feeling persistently low, hopeless, or disconnected from things you used to enjoy, including intimacy, please reach out to a healthcare provider. Your partner noticing changes before you do. Sometimes the people who love us see what we can't. If your partner has expressed concern, or if there is growing distance in your relationship around intimacy, that conversation deserves attention. None of these signs are causes for shame. They are information, and information is power. How to improve your number naturally. This is the section I want you to take notes on, because everything here is actionable, practical, and backed by real evidence. If you want to perform better, recover faster, and feel more like yourself again, here is where you start. Step 1, move your body every day. You do not need to become an athlete, But 30 minutes of moderate exercise, walking, swimming, cycling, resistance training done consistently will improve blood circulation, support testosterone production, reduce cortisol, and improve sleep. All four of those things directly improve sexual performance. Exercise is not optional for sexual health after 60. It is foundational. Step 2, clean up your diet. Focus on whole foods, lean proteins, healthy fats, and plenty of vegetables. Reduce alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most direct suppressants of testosterone and sexual function, and its effects are more pronounced after 60 than they were in your 30s. Increase foods that are known to support testosterone naturally: eggs, fatty fish, leafy greens, nuts, and seeds. Step 3, prioritize sleep like your performance depends on it, because it does. Aim for 7 to 10 hours of quality sleep per night. If you are struggling with sleep, address it. Talk to your doctor about sleep apnea. If you snore heavily, your testosterone recovery happens while you sleep. Protect it. Step 4, manage stress intentionally. Whether that is through meditation, prayer, therapy, journaling, time in nature, or simply creating space in your schedule to breathe, find what works for you and do it consistently. Cortisol is the enemy. Calm is the weapon. Step 5, talk to your partner. I cannot overstate the importance of this. Open, honest, non-pressured communication about desires, expectations, and changes is one of the most powerful things you can do for your sex life after 60. Couples who talk openly about sex have better sex. Full stop. Step 6, consider getting your hormone levels checked. A simple blood test can tell you exactly where your testosterone stands. If your levels are clinically low, there are options from lifestyle changes to medically supervised hormone support. Knowledge is the starting point. Step 7, address performance anxiety directly. This is something I work on with men regularly, and it is more common than you would think. Performance anxiety creates a self-fulfilling cycle. The fear of not performing causes the very outcome you're afraid of. Cognitive behavioral approaches, mindfulness practices, and open communication with a partner can all break that cycle effectively. You do not need to do all of these at once. Pick 2. Start there. Build momentum, because momentum is what changes everything. Real talk, what no one tells you about sex after 60. I want to close this section with something that I consider the most important thing I will say in this entire video. The men who come into my practice in their 60s and 70s, the ones who have done the work, who have invested in their health, their relationships, and their self-awareness, do not describe their sex lives as diminished. They describe them as transformed. They talk about a level of presence they never had in their 30s, a patience they didn't know how to access in their 40s, a depth of connection that comes only from truly knowing another person and being known by them. They talk about experiences that were slower, more intentional, more emotionally charged, and more satisfying than anything they experienced when they were younger and faster and less aware. The lie that society sells men is that sexual value is measured in rounds per night, in performance metrics, in how closely you resemble a 25-year-old. That lie steals something precious from men who are still very much alive, still very much capable, and still very much deserving of a rich and fulfilling intimate life. Your best rounds may not be behind you. For a lot of men, with the right information and the right approach, they are still ahead. Now, if this video gave you something today, if it answered a question you've been carrying quietly, if it made you feel seen or informed, or even just a little less alone in this, I want you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that like button. It tells me that this kind of honest, real content is what you need more of, and it helps this video reach the men who need it most. Second, share this video with a friend, a brother, a partner, someone in your life who is over 60 and deserves to hear this. You might be giving them something they didn't even know they needed. And third, drop a comment below. Tell me what resonated with you. Tell me what question you still have. Tell me what you want me to cover next. I read every single comment and I build this content for you. So let me hear from you. That is everything for today, and I hope it was worth every second. I'm Dr. Julia Rhodes. I will see you in the next